Hello everyone, today I'd like to briefly talk to you guys about the bridge of total freedom, or as I like to call it, the bridge of total bankruptcy, or the bridge to totally nowhere. And this is what that is. So it basically shows you the main courses, the main things that Scientology sell to be able to gain your own spiritual freedom. And as you can see, there are two sides of it. You've got the processing and the training. The processing side is all about your own personal spiritual freedom, where you have the grades, clear, this is something you probably have heard of, and becoming an OT. At the moment, there's only until, let's see if you can read it if I zoom in too much, but until your OT8, that is all that is basically open. The rest, it says here, I can't read it, unfortunately. It's too blurry. But these are all confidential, closed. They haven't been released yet. There are certain things that have to be done first to be able to release them. However, from what I know, when Hubbard passed away in the late 80s, he never actually finished all of these others, because apparently it goes all the way up to OT 15, right? But from OT 9 until 15, there's no writing from Hubbard. He left nothing, so it's only until OT 8. And OT 8 was released, I think, shortly before Hubbard passed away in the 80s. So it's been a minute since a new OT level has been released. And it's funny because nobody really talks about it. Like, it has been 40 years or so. It's been 35, 40 years since the last OT level has been released, and somehow it doesn't seem to be a problem. Probably because David Miscavige keeps re-releasing new courses, and so the people who are up here on OT8, when a new course is released, like for example down here, you have tiers and objectives. Now it is called differently because it was re-released recently. So what they do is they take the course and you look at it like, ooh, yeah, a few problematic things, so let's take this out. Oh, let's add some other things in there. Let's shuffle it around a bit. Let's make a new glossy cover over it and then resell it. And then everybody who has already done tiers objectives will have to redo this course because it wasn't delivered properly, you know. So the people who are up here on OT8, who've been sitting for years to be able to keep going, they have something to do. You know, they have to do tiers objectives again or whatever. I mean, it is pathetic and sad because particularly, you know, Scientology doesn't say, you know what, we fucked up. We made a mistake. You know, there are certain policies that were not in the course pack. So, you know, it's our mistake. I'm sorry. We're sorry. And we're sorry that you have to do this again. And so obviously we will have you do this again free of charge, naturally, because it's our mistake. No, they will never say that. They will never apologize. They will never say it was their mistake. You simply have to redo it and, of course, naturally pay full price for it. And this happens with tiers objectives and any other thing that has been repackaged, like Clear. Clear has been repackaged a few times. Anyway, so yeah, that was that. So you've got the processing on this side, which is, as I said, your own personal spiritual freedom. And then you've got the training side, where you train to become an auditor. Because to be able to be an auditor, to get somebody to get to Clear and all the other levels, you have to have a certain level of auditor, a certain auditor level, which are the classes. You've got the different classes, and the very top is class 12, although there is a class 13. No, hang on. No, this is still class 12. Yeah. It's class 12, which is the highest auditor training you can do, and this you can actually achieve. You can actually achieve class 12, not like OT 15, but you can actually achieve the top of the left side of class 12. All right. So this is the bridge of total freedom, as I said. So let's have a look at the two sides a little bit more close up. Yeah, a little closer up. Now, I can't really speak about the grades, New Aerodynamics or Clear, because I've never done that. I can only tell you briefly about Purification Rundown and the Tiers Objectives, because that's what I have done. I've done the Purification Rundown, And TS Objectives I actually started twice. I've never actually finished it, and I will do a video about why I never finished it and my very unpleasant experience doing with the TS and Objectives, and why I was never able to do any more than that in Scientology. Yeah, that would be an interesting video. All right, so let's just briefly have a look at the purification rundown, for example, and the TS Objectives, where we can see here the name of state, subject audited, prerequisite, class of auditor. So if you need an auditor, at what level do they have to be? Again, it's on the other side, right, of the bridge. Where obtained, so in what kind of church, in what kind of Scientology organization are you able to actually get this service? And the ability gain, so what is the whole point of it? Like, what do you get out of it? And you always have this on all the levels. It always tells you exactly what is the purpose, what are your ability gained, and all your superpowers and whatever you might get from that. All right, so purification rundown, it's purification rundown completion. Then you've got a subject audited and prerequisites. So what is the subject that we're auditing? Biochemical factors, and prerequisite medical exam and okay to do the purification rundown. That is true. You need to go to the doctor to make sure you're physically fit to do it. Then we've got here class of auditor, and here we'll say none, because you don't need an auditor to do this. You do this on your own. I mean, there might be other people doing the purification rundown with you, of course, but you don't actually have to have another person to do that. And then you've got where obtained. It says Scientology churches, missions, field auditors. So basically anywhere to do with Scientology, pretty much, because Scientology churches, these are all the organizations, that you can go to from Scientology. Missions these are referred to. It's basically when you have a Scientologist who would like to deliver Scientology separately from the org. So a scenario would be, for example, you've got a very large city. Maybe the infrastructure isn't that good. You don't have very good public transport or whatever, and to get to the church is maybe difficult. And so you, as a public, you decide, you know what, I'm going to deliver Scientology in my living room or whatever, or in my spare bedroom. And so they might be able to deliver basic courses and things like that in privately like that. But they can't just do this and go for it. They have to have approval. There be very strict rules. They have to pay a certain amount of money to Scientology to be able to do that, and they're being supervised and really controlled, that they do everything exactly how they tell them how to do it. And a field auditor is somebody who has done on the left side of the bridge, so become an auditor, but doesn't actually work for Scientology, isn't a staff or SUG member delivering auditing to the public, but this is a public who has become an auditor, and they want to now deliver different courses and different levels of Scientology because they've become an auditor, and they would do this in the field. They would do this, again, privately at home, maybe in a mission, and they would get paid to do that, naturally, but they have to pay a percentage to Scientology. They have to pay to be able to do that, to use the trademarks and all of that. I mean, it's completely controlled by Scientology. It's not something you can just do willy-nilly on the side or whatever. It's very, very strict rules on how you can become a field auditor. And field simply refers to the area outside of the Church of Scientology. That's the field, right? So all the people in there. You can imagine like a field of sheep, and you have to look after the sheep in a way. And I think that's a very good way of actually describing that. Okay, and then here we have, I think, ability gained. Yes, ability gained. Freedom from the restimulative effects of drugs, residuals, and other toxins. Marvelous, isn't it? So the purification rundown is something I did when I was a small child, 8 or 10 years old, I don't remember exactly. And what you do is you go into the sauna for 4 or 5 hours a day. you go and run around in a field to sweat, or maybe if it's too cold outside, then you're on a treadmill, and you want to sweat as much as possible, because Hubbard believed that all kinds of toxins are stored within the fatty tissues of the body, and by sweating, you are sweating away all these toxins that are stored in there, right? And then what you need to do, you need to replenish the fatty tissue. So you drink oil. I don't remember what oils. There were different oils. And then you take lots of supplements, lots of vitamins. One of them would be a vitamin B3. I believe it's B3, which is niacin. And the daily amount is actually very, very small, but you need to take thousands and thousands and thousands of milligrams, and because you take so much, there is actually a physical reaction where your skin becomes red, like it gets red patches in certain areas, and you become very hot. The body temperature rises, and if you combine this with the fact that you need to sweat in the sauna, it can become quite dangerous. And twice during this time, I actually fainted when I was a child and doing the purification run, because it was just physically too much for my body. So that was the purification rundown. And then we got the TIA's objectives. Again, I'm going to do a separate video on that, otherwise this video will become too long. But yeah, I just wanted to introduce a little bit of what is the Bridge of Total Freedom. Although bridge always kind of confused me even as a child, because it shows you steps, so shouldn't it be the ladder of total freedom? Because a bridge doesn't usually have steps like that. Anyway, never mind. So that's the right side, and then the left side is where you become an auditor. Yeah, there we go. Now, I can't really talk much about this because I've never become an auditor. The only kind of auditing that I've given is so-called Book 1 auditing. Book 1 refers to Dynetics, the modern science of mental health. And that kind of auditing that is described in there is called Book 1 auditing. And you don't use an e-meter. You don't use this lie detector thing that you use in Scientology. You actually just sit opposite each other, and the other person closes their eye, and you basically tell them, go back to a time in the past where, I don't know, you ate an apple or whatever it was, and then the person recounts the time, they ate an apple, and so on and so forth. And then you ask them things like, well, what do you smell? What can you see? Are you alone there? Like, where are you positioned? Are you sitting down? Are you standing? Are you next to a tree maybe? And things like that. And you go over the incident as much as many, many times, and then every time you ask something else, like, what do you see? What do you hear? And so on and so forth. And the idea is to have the person be able to remember more and more of that particular instance. And then you would go further back. So recall an earlier time where you ate an apple. Maybe in the first instance, he was 22, and then in the next instance, a bit earlier, he was maybe 17 or whatever. And you keep going until the person feels very happy, elated, and wonderful, and all of that. And that's the sort of auditing I did when I was a child. Now, thankfully, I did it with another child. Her name was Jessica. We two did it. And I say thankfully because if it would have been an adult, there may have been some very disturbing things that may have come out of that, because you don't only ask, did you ever eat an apple? You do ask other things as well. So I was quite lucky in that regard, because there are other Scientology children who have to audit adults, and then they tell them very horrific things that no child should hear. But yeah, that's Scientology for you, because there are no children in Scientology. There are only adults in small bodies. Anyway, so that's a little introduction to the Bridge of Total Freedom from a very unexpertly view on that. I do hope you found it nonetheless interesting. You can find this easily on Google. You just put in Google the Bridge of Total Freedom, and then you can look at it more precisely. Unfortunately, when I zoom in too much, it just becomes too blurry. You can't actually read it. But do read it for yourself if you want. It's very interesting, particularly the different abilities that you are supposed to have gained. For example, on an OT8, you're supposed to have recall of your whole track. The whole track is, I think it's worded as removing amnesia of your whole track. Something like that. It's worded in that sort of way. Amnesia, obviously, if you don't remember, your past and whatever. And the whole track refers to all of your lives that you have lived before. Because in Scientology, the belief is you're a spiritual being, an undying, immortal spiritual being who has lived many, many lives. And so on OT8, you're supposed to be able to have recall of all of your lives, all of the lives you've ever had. So in other words, an OT8 would know exactly what they were and what they were doing at 3:15 p.m. on the 3rd of November 1632, because they have perfect memory and they should be able to do that. But it's funny because all of these OT8s, they don't speak like 50 languages. They only speak their native language and then maybe English or whatever. And that's pretty much it, which is interesting because if you are able to recall your past lives, why would you recall your past lives where you were in 16th century Spain and you recorded in English? That's something, to think about. Why aren't these people able to speak all of these languages? But anyway, apparently when you're OT8, you're able to recall your complete whole track meaning all of the past lives, right? Anyway, so this is a little interesting thing to read and to sort of think about. Also for active Scientologists, like, have you ever actually met an OT8 per this description? I doubt it, right? Anyway, I do hope you found this rather unprofessional view on the Bridge of Total Freedom interesting. We had sort of dipped our toes into this to just have a little peek at that. Do check it out online. You just put in on Google the Bridge of Total Freedom, and then you'll find that you can look at it a bit more precisely. I do hope you found it nonetheless interesting, maybe even entertaining. Do give it a thumbs up if you'd be so kind, and if you find my sort of goofy way of doing this sort of thing interesting, do hit the subscribe button, and I wish you a most marvelous day. Goodbye.